Hello, a great excitement today as I have a new package here from RadioMaster. It is the Zorro. The Zorro, a kind of game style controller radio with a decent sized display in it which you can run OpenTX or EdgeTX. Now this is actually available in a variety of flavours. There is one that has the CC2500 chip, and that's one of the multi-protocol chips that does things like FreeSky and I think High-Tech and Futaba. It's got the full 4-in-1 as another option. And it's got ELRS. Me, being super keen on ExpressLRS, that is the version I've chosen. So let's get this out of the box and see what's inside for starters. You get this packaging and a quick start guide. You don't normally get those on paper now. What a novelty. Obviously there's fuller manuals online and stuff, but let's get the actual main unit out. Okay, so there's a little bag. In the little bag is a USB-C cable, which I think can work as both the data cable and a charge cable. There are two battery straps. More about what these are for later. And I can't believe I'm holding up a piece of transparent film. This, if you can't see it, if I do that and you catch the light, is a little screen protector, which is quite a nice touch, isn't it? On to the radio itself. I've never had a RadioMaster radio, and I've got to say, this feels pretty nice quality. There's a certain weight about it, which is reassuring. You know when you pick up a radio and it's a sort of bit plasticky and light, and that's not nice. This doesn't feel that way. It feels very nice. I'm just going to take this screen protector off here. So yeah, this feels nice in the hand, and the gimbals feel really nice as well. Hall effect gimbals, and one thing I noted about this radio, it's very adjustable. You've got adjustments here on either of the sticks that will adjust the stick travel. If you want to change between mode 1 and 2, you can do it without assembling the radio through these holes here. There's both spring tension adjustment, and you can go between mode 1 and 2. Which is pretty clever stuff. Now, this being a review model, they shipped it with a few things that are optional extras, one being the batteries. This is a little bit different in terms of battery it uses. It uses 18350s, which are obviously much smaller than 18650s. And these are already installed for me, but that'll be something you'd need to really get hold of. But aside from having power on the batteries there, you've also got a reserve. Underneath here is this little balance connector, which you can plug a 2S battery in, and that's the USB-C charge port just under there as well. Feels like we're starting to get into the nitty-gritty of it, so let's go into close-up and we'll have a proper look at all the functions and what the switches do and all the little bits and pieces. Okay, welcome to close-up view. Here's the radio once again, as I said, feeling lovely in the hand. A couple of things about this that I'm liking a lot. The first I noticed there's a lot of options for buttons. There's a scroll wheel which is metal, but there's dedicated buttons. You know, sometimes you have to press in a certain direction of a button to get like models up and stuff, but they've got a specific model button. They've got the telemetry button. They've got page both ways, a return, and assist button to get into the sort of main menu. But anyway, on the front you've obviously got 4 trim tabs. You've got your main sticks. You've got 2 two-way switches, and then 2 three-way switches there. Then it's a little bit odd. Stuff I haven't seen before. You've got a bunch of momentaries. You've got this A and D, and G and H here. These are listed as sort of auxiliary switches. I don't know if the idea is you might put something on. In here there's a lot of mounts that the idea is you might be able to put something else there, and these could be switches that perhaps go with it. But certainly an interesting and different way of doing things. Most of us, of course, just use the main switches like ARM and your modes and stuff. But there are other switches. There's also some sliders as well. So you're really covered for a bunch of different models. Then if we look at the top here, you've got the SD card, which doesn't come with it. It's already inserted. The headphone jack, and over the other side you've got the data USB and the trainer port. The data USB seems to be independent of the charge USB. I guess they're for different things, and that's that little balance port I talked about earlier. Now, the reason I mentioned these before, we've got these, is they go hand in hand with this. So if you had, for example, a 2S battery, because you ran out of battery on the field, you had a 2S in your thing, you want to plug that in the balance port, but you don't want it just like hanging out and flicking around. Well, the idea of these is they will thread through these little holes here, and so when you put your battery in place, you can do something like that. So that is plugged in the balance port, and it's held on with the cables, because of course the balance leads on batteries aren't very big, are they? Now there's an alternative to that, which is an optional extra you can get, and this comes in this little bag here. And the idea of this is, if you've got a big old 2S battery that you might want to put in your pocket or something and run it for ages, is you've got a great big long cable. You've got XT30 this end, although you will notice it very clearly says only a 2S LiPo. So you'd plug this in here like so. You'd plug this into your battery, and that can be miles away in your pocket. And it also comes with this bit here, and what this bit does is acts as a retaining clip, so it can't accidentally be pulled out like that, which is quite a handy idea. But yeah, that's an idea if you're going to be flying for a long time and you're worried about you're going to need a bigger battery to run this on, because you're going to run out of charge on the internal ones. Now there was just one thing on the radio that gave me a little bit cause for hesitation, and that was the antenna. There is an antenna in the back here, and what you can do is basically pull it out like that and then angle it the way you want it. It's just, for ELRS, I'm quite used to dealing with mini Moxons, and obviously we're dealing with just, well, what looks like a monopole antenna here. Will it be as good? Are we going to get the sort of range that we're used to with OpenRS? The answer is, of course, I don't know at this point, because I haven't tested it, but that would be interesting to find out on a flight test. And the last thing I want to say about the external features of this is it's got an extension bay. These are one of the nano bays, so if you're like, oh, actually, I don't want 2.4 ELRS today, I want 868, plug one of those in and you can run it, or a multi-protocol module, or R9 or Ghost, or pretty much whatever you can get in a nano module is going to work on this, so you won't be stuck with just one radio system. Anyway, let's turn this on, shall we?
Welcome to Edge TX.
Yeah, it's running Edge. I've never run Edge before, so that was quite an interesting point of view for me. Yeah, this display is really nice, very nice and bright, very familiar. I've not used Edge before, but instantly it's essentially OpenTX with some bells and whistles. Obviously it was forked from that. And what I was mentioning before, you've got things like, if you press the model button, you'll go to the models, and then you can use the little thumb wheel to select a model or whatever. And then when you're in there, you've got pages back and forwards, and you've got the return, and hold down the sys key and you can go into your regular tools, press telemetry, and you'll see the telemetry screens. It's all pretty straightforward, all nicely written on the buttons. Now, one of the first things I'd want to do with a radio running ELRS is have a look at the ELRS setup. So if we go into this menu here and hit that button, we can see that it's running ExpressLRS 2. something, because it's running this updated Lua script, and the internal ExpressLRS transmitter in here will run several versions of power up to 250 milliwatts. So 50, 100, 250. I'd probably use 100 most of the time. You also notice the packet rate is at 500 Hz, which is the fastest it can go, and that's something OpenTX in its current form can't do. It's stuck on 250. On EdgeTX you can run it at 500, which is really nice. However, this is good to go. I could go and bind something right now, but once you've used your bind phrase in ExpressLRS, it's very hard to go back to anything else. So I thought that the first thing I'll do is actually update this and get the latest and greatest version of ExpressLRS on here with my bind phrase, so I can just go straight out and start flying my models without having to think about binding and stuff. So let's do that next.
Okay, so I put the ExpressLRS transmitter into Wi-Fi mode and connect it to it, and it says there it's got a DIY 2400TX Duplex X firmware, and we saw that little version number pop up before. Now, when I had a look for this, I couldn't find an obvious one. I talked again in the Discord group to the ExpressLRS people, and the upshot of this is it's not been released yet, the official firmware for it. It's going to be out in the next release. So currently, at the time of putting this video out, you have to go to a Git branch for master, and there you will find the RadioMaster 2.4 GHz device on the Zorro 2400TX. this is actually going to be the same firmware, I think, that's running on the radio. But of course, I want my binding phrase on it because I don't want to use bind buttons anymore. As soon as you've done it, you can't go back to it. Hopefully, when the new version of ExpressLRS comes out, and they seem to be coming thick and fast, this will be in the major release and you won't have to worry about it. But for now, I'm going to attempt to flash this using Wi-Fi, although I know there's also Edge TX pass-through as well, which is an interesting one. Using all my normal things, and let's see what happens. Hopefully this will be smooth. Okay, since it's done it, I do like it when things work first time. So the next thing I'll be doing is just plugging in one of my quads that I've already got ExpressLRS on, just making sure I can bind to it and the radio works as expected. Yeah, I've just quickly hooked up this quad and connected to Betaflight, and that's all working okay. One thing I noticed, and I haven't changed anything, is how accurate the sticks are. They go straight back to 1500. Obviously, I haven't touched anything, and you can see that the endpoints are wrong, but the sub trim seems amazingly accurate. It's like spot on every time, 1500 dead center. I don't know if this is an Edge TX thing. I did notice there was this center thing, but yeah, impressive. Anyway, that's all done. Now, as far as connecting up to a SIM, we've got two options. I've gone ahead and connected USB-C to the top USB port. And yeah, things are good. Nice controls. They work exactly like OpenTX does. So you've pretty much got the controls coming up very well for me, at least, and I could very easily put the additional switches in, turn off the external and internal receivers. So that bit's all good. The other option, because this is running ExpressLRS, is to use the Bluetooth controller. So if I go to my joystick setup, I'm going to run the ExpressLRS Lua script, go down to BLE joystick, start BLE joystick. I assume I have a joystick connection. Yeah, and now I'm flying wirelessly. So two options there. I guess pretty useful if you're going to do some flying on Android devices. If you've got a tablet or something and it's a bit of a pain to connect via a cable, you can at least use the Bluetooth joystick in ExpressLRS, which is really handy. Now, in terms of charging the joystick, as I said, bottom USB, you get a little red charge light that comes on to tell you it's charging. And once charging is complete, the light just turns off and you know it's done. Well, hello from the field. Let's get the little Zorro tested. I want to see how this little antenna does. As I said, it was one of the things that kind of concerned me because it was just like a little sort of monopole thing instead of the normal mini Moxon. As per usual for the range testing, I'll be using the little Aquila here, which is good for going out for, you know, a decent distance. I'm just a little bit worried. It's quite cold again today. The sun's actually poking its head out, but it's, you know, about 5 degrees at the moment. And these little 850 batteries don't like the cold too much, so hopefully it can get all the way out to the 1.4 kilometer and come back again, which is where I've tested most of the other stuff I've messed around with. What I did do though on the other stuff is have a speed of 250 hertz because they wouldn't go up to 500. This does go up to 500, but I'm going to start it on 250 just so it's the same sort of test. We'll do that, see how it goes, then we can whack it up to 500 and fly some more. So let's get going. So we're up and running with the first flight of the day, waiting 2 minutes to get 6 sats. It always picks up a bit later. And yeah, it's quite a nice flying day. It's fairly calm. There's not much going on. The sun is starting to get a little bit brighter in the sky, which is always nice. And everything's going much as planned at the moment. I'm keeping it, I generally go around 50 meters of height here, just going along, because there's these big trees that kind of can get in the way if I drop underneath them. Now, I get a couple of little blips along the way here, dropping to sort of 99, down to about 97 at its worst. I don't really think much of this because, you know, that's just one of those things that happens occasionally. And I'm going to fast forward a little bit because I want to get to where things get a bit sketchy because I've got different bits of footage to show you. So we're just past the kilometre mark, and you can see that the link quality is still flickering around 95 to 100, which is not bad. It's just I'm used to it sitting at 100. But when I do the turn is when it looks really, really bad. It gets down as low as, like, you saw 18 pop up there. I was like, whoa, that is a hell of a null. I mean, obviously, as soon as I get the quad back facing and, you know, the antenna's there, we're straight back up to 100. Although we're still sort of flicking up and down on the 90s, and I'm thinking that is a little bit strange. Have I got something wrong with the antenna?
Okay, first battery done. It was okay, a bit sketchy on the turn. The only thing I wasn't clear about is, does this antenna have any sort of polarization? So should I put it effectively folded down? Would that make a difference? I'm going to have a quick check. I'll know pretty quickly if the LQ drops, so let's give it a quick try like this and see what happens.
Okay, I'm going to fast forward the first bit because it's absolutely solid and nothing happens at all for the first like 600 meters. At which point we get the very odd little blips down to sort of 99, 98. But at this point I feel it was sort of flicking about a lot more when I had the antenna vertically polarized. So I think I've probably just hit a polarization problem on the last flight. But of course the proof is going to be in the turn. There's always, I would expect a little bit of a drop because we're going to hit the null point of the antenna during the turn. Often I've seen this with absolutely nothing at all with certain modules, but it's something you kind of expect to a degree. So we are just coming up on the turn now, and we get a little drop down to, I think 89 was the worst. But I have to say that's a heck of a lot better. I think I was going out and basically using the wrong polarization. I think that's the only way I can say it for sure. And once again I'll speed up because it was absolutely solid on the way back, no problem at all, but that's kind of what you'd expect with the antenna facing you. Well, yeah, I think that looked more solid, so I'm guessing it is a polarized antenna. So you're either horizontal, like I am on the antenna of my quad, or you're vertical, in which case that is probably when you want it out like that. And if you're not got a vertically polarized antenna, you seem to keep it folded away. What I mean by that is if you look at the front of the quad, you'll see the antenna there is horizontal, so just copy it. Anyway, let's put it onto 500 Hertz, have a bit more of a fly, see how it feels. So the first thing I did was a repeat of the previous two flights I'd done, so out to about 1.3, 1.4 kilometers, just to see how it would perform, to see what would happen in the turn and how much it would drop. I have to say 500 Hertz is not for flying any sort of distance. The idea of 500 Hertz, it's absolutely latency free. So it's really about having a really tight response for doing super fast racing or freestyle when you want a seriously locked in feeling. I can't tell the difference between 250 and 500 Hertz, but this is not really the quad for it. This is like, you know, a quite gentle, longish range quad. So this isn't really the thing for trying to fly crazy. But I just wanted to see what would happen if I took it out to a reasonable distance. You know, and it feels fine. As I said, this quad is not the quad for trying to race along and stuff. But, you know, you can still do the odd thing. You can try and chase seagulls if you want to. They will always outmaneuver you. And you can do really pathetically slow rolls and stuff like that. And everything feels absolutely fine. I think this is about as exciting as got on this quad. It's like fly low, do a turn, and go back and fly low again, and then have a bit of a chase of your shadow. And, you know, it's nicely reactive as you'd expect. But I was quite keen to kind of push the boundaries a little bit. So what I did on my last battery, I flew straight out in front of me for a distance until I basically hit houses, and then I turned left, so that would give me a direct antenna null to see what the signal would be like. And it's pretty much as I expected. As soon as we make that turn and the antenna is facing to the null, we do get quite a drop, and it's dropping off, you know, into the 80s and downwards as you'd expect it to be. As soon as we again start turning some more, so we start losing the null, the LQ starts coming back up again. But it's certainly an interesting thing, and it's something to think about when you're going out to any distance, because of course when you're like 100 meters in front of you, you won't get a thing because the signal's still there. We're sort of turning around to face ourselves now. Signals come back much stronger, but yeah, certainly when you turn it, you get the null, and that's a drop. And if you're doing this at distance with a very fast packet rate, it exacerbates the drop further. So there are definitely some differences I'd make if I was wanting to do range, one of which would be dropping the packet rate down. The other would be to be much more careful about where I was going to go. You know, you can't just go to a distance and then turn your antenna into a null point and expect it just to be happy. But all in all, a good hour or so at the field, 5 batteries done, radio performed well, quads worked pretty well. It was pretty cold though. I would like the batteries to last longer. Perhaps I'll have to get some Li-ion cells on this one. But anyway, yeah, good flying, tests all done.
Well, and there you go, that was my flying part with the radio, but time moves very quickly here. I only got this radio on Tuesday. I started looking at it Wednesday. I did the flashing yesterday, which was Thursday. Today's Friday, which is release day, and that coincides with ExpressLRS 2.2 being released, and in 2.2 the firmware for this is now in the regular release, so you don't have to do anything weird like I did before. I did go and attempt to flash this via the EdgeTX pass-through, and to do that you connect the USB lead to the top, you put it into serial pass-through, and you should just be able to do the build and flash using EdgeTX pass-through. That didn't seem to work for me for whatever reason. I don't know if it's perhaps a Mac specific thing. I'll have to follow that up with the ExpressLRS guys and see, but I did just go back and flash it via Wi-Fi, and that was absolutely fine, and it now comes up on its page and tells me it's running 2.2. So that's all good. The official firmware is now there and you can install it to your heart's content. So what did I think of this overall? Well, I like lots about it. I really like the fact I like this type of radio, the sort of game controller. I am a games player, so I'm very used to holding this type of controller. The sticks are very nice. When I set up my sub-trims and endpoints, as you saw, the sub-trim didn't need to be touched, and when I set the endpoint, I've never had a radio that's so exact. Sometimes we have the edge where you can just put a bit more pressure on it and it changes. This was absolutely spot on. It's like 1000, 1500, 2000 every time, every direction. That's very nice. And of course the fact you can change the physical endpoints using these adjustments is good, and the fact you can change spring tension and over to mode 1 without opening up is very, very nice. And I do like the fact you've got all these little momentary switches, and I additionally like the fact that this one here isn't a momentary switch like it usually is, because that's an extra 2-position switch that's very easy to use. This was very much a collaborative effort, so RadioMaster got together with the ExpressLRS devs to make sure they were making the right type of radio and the right type of hardware there. And there was also some collaboration with EdgeTX, because this is an internal receiver, so that had to be in the option as well, so you could set CRSF up as internal. So that's all very good. So the only thing that I was slightly worried about, and I thought might be somewhat of an issue, is this, the antenna. It works. I went to 1.4 kilometers as soon as I realized maybe I should have it that way, or perhaps even that way. It worked a lot better, but I've got used to using these mini Moxons, and I think the signal is stronger than this versus whatever this is. I guess it's a dipole or monopole. That was my only issue. So at range, it may not be as good as using one of these or one of the modules with one of these. Aside from that though, I'm extremely happy with everything about it. Just a general feel of it is really, really nice, the way it sits in the hand there, and I like some of the details as I mentioned before. It just feels more substantial than many radios, and the layout for it is very nice. Anyway, this was my review of the RadioMaster Zorro. As I said, it's available in various flavours, not just the ExpressLRS version that I've got, and you can find links down below. I hope that review's been helpful. I'll be flying this some more because I got a couple of these receivers from RadioMaster as well. These are the EP1 and EP2 RXs, so I'll be putting that on some models, and of course be flying this in my general day-to-day stuff because I like ExpressLRS quite a lot. Anyway, I'll catch you in the next video. Bye for now.
Well, you've made it to the end of the video, so thanks once again for watching. If you like what you saw, then please consider subscribing, and if you really like what you saw, then be sure to check out the link to my blog for a variety of ways in which you can help support this channel.